This week on LTC News, a local business strives to eliminate waste.
I was just thinking to throw it off, and then, my friend, the co-founder, Ali, he said, just try giving it out to somebody, and,
Youth summer activities.
We're the first thing open since schools have been closed. So this has been the first experience with our club members coming back, actually being in a social environment, actually being able to be around friends.
And redistricting for 2020.
It's a process for input from the community, and then the expert will draw the line.
Welcome to LTC News. I'm your host, Matt Nelson. On July 10th, Governor Baker launched Stop the Spread, a free COVID-19 testing program in Massachusetts cities with the most cases. The Lowell Health Department responded by providing week-long testing operations at 4 sites around the city, beginning on July 20th. The Coalition for a Better Acre hosted a site during the week of July 27th. The testing is being done by the staff of the Lowell Community Health Center and Trinity Ambulance. The sites were chosen to allow for both drive-up and walk-in options, and any resident can get tested at no charge, even without symptoms.
This is a good testing site. It's the first time I've been tested, just with everything going on with being down at City Hall and the graduation. I figured it was a good idea to get tested. So I just came in, I was a walk-in, and the line goes very fast. It's not too bad. You get tested and get your results in 3 days. So they got a good system here. Well, it's good just to get tested, just to make sure you're safe and make sure that everybody in your household's safe. So even though we're limiting who we interact with every day, it's good to get tested.
It's a joint effort, so it's the Lowell Health Department, the Lowell Community Health Center, and Trinity EMS that are all working together on this project right now. So I'm very thankful for everybody who's been helping out. And we have some volunteers as well.
From August 3rd to the 7th, the testing will be done outside the Robinson School at 110 June Street, and on August 10th through the 14th at the CMAA at 465 School Street. Pre-registration is strongly recommended, although not required, and can be done by calling 978-937-9700. As all sites are outdoors, testing is weather dependent, so check for cancellation notices ahead of your visit. Free testing is also available by appointment at the Lowell Community Health Center on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. For more information, visit lowellma.gov/coronavirus. The Lowell-based startup Kure recently celebrated the launch of its new app that enables users to share unwanted food with members of their community. We spoke with the company's co-founder, Hamza Sheikh, about Kure's mission and how the company has adapted to life in a pandemic.
July 2019, this is 2 months after I graduated from University of Massachusetts Lowell, and I graduated in finance and supply chain management. And after that, I was moving out of Lowell, so I was living there for the last 4 years. So I had a bunch of stuff that I no longer needed and had to get rid of. I was just thinking to throw it off, and then, my friend, the co-founder, Ali, he said, just try giving it out to somebody. And, I found a few people. From there, the idea generated that, let's try making a group and see if someone's interested in getting the food stuff and non-food stuff and all that. We started off with a Facebook group. Within a month, we had 800 plus members. People from Boston were coming to drop off their stuff to people who wanted it in Lowell. For the group, it was just a normal posting. With the app, we made it much more easier. It's the same. You just take a picture, you add the description, title, pickup direction. If it's a food item, you add the possible allergies, expiry date and all that, and it shows the other user how far it is from him.
How has coronavirus affected the cleaning process, or Is there any like added steps to make sure that like the produce and products that people are getting, have been cleaned by somebody, or it's being done on?
Yes, absolutely. Because as I told you, we just launched not even been 2 weeks, and we've got 200 plus active users on the app right now. And we have this campaign that's going on starting from Wednesday. It's going to focus on how you can do safe sharing. Make sure you don't interact with people. So we have a campaign that's going to go for the next week, starting from Wednesday to next Wednesday. Probably we'll have this going on our market.
What are the things that you find that people share the most?
On the Facebook group, when we started the Facebook group, it was just food sharing. People were sharing, mostly it wasn't leftovers. Mostly it was, packed goods that they no longer needed, packed food goods. But when we were working on the app, just to broaden the idea, we added a non-food items category too. So since then, people have shared, used, clothes. They don't need calculators, and there's a bunch of stuff that's falling into non-food items. Yeah, with the food, it's mostly packed goods. It's mostly the the canned beans, cereals, and there was a woman I'm really thankful to from Andover. Her name's Melissa. She donated 20 turkeys on the Thanksgiving, and all these 20 turkeys were distributed to these people in Lowell and nearby areas. Yeah.
With COVID-19 causing cancellation of the City of Lowell's recreation programs, many families are left wondering what their kids can do during the summer months. We learned of some youth programs that are finding new ways to operate this summer.
So this has been the first experience with our club members coming back, actually being in a social environment, actually being able to be around friends, and still having fun, and us still providing them with the programming that our parents want and our kids deserve. But mostly we've been focusing on the social emotional learning aspect, because this has been a very traumatic experience for a lot of our kids and a lot of our families. And it was really important for us to open as soon as possible, safely, of course, so that we can start bringing the families back together and start giving them that element of that community that they've been missing through this isolated period. So we have changed our program spaces so that they are properly social distanced. Because it is brand new, all the visual cues you can imagine are available. We have stars on the ground, so we can ask our younger members to find stars so that we know that they're properly social distanced.
With our summer children's programming, some of the adjustments that we've had to make have included redesigning the space in specific ways. We were concentrating a great deal on the three things that have been so emphasized: social distancing, wearing face masks, and also hand sanitization. So we are providing summer programming for school-aged children, Monday through Friday from 9 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon. We're also providing a very limited amount of transportation for some of the children to be able to attend the programming. We're providing programming for teenagers, our summer programming for teenagers that's at this point primarily virtual, although we have recently included a service activity, and that leads into our third component of programming that we're offering, and that's programming for families. And the programming for families is focusing on two things. One, the service component. We are developing a roaming food bus. And so our young people are helping to package bags of groceries that are then being distributed out in the community in a variety of targeted neighborhoods.
So we are running at reduced capacity. We are keeping the ratio 10 children per staff. We've also isolated based on age groups to avoid cross-contamination. During this time, we are offering summer programming here. Unfortunately, where we used to do field trips prior, we are only offering basically in-house programming. So no outside field trips at the moment, although we are looking to incorporate some walks to like the park and things of that nature just because we also have had some issues with the outdoor space and we have not been able to utilize that either. So we're basically running the same intentional program we were in the fall, but also making sure to incorporate a lot of different fun activities for the girls to be able to do, including lots of art programs.
We have a virtual programming platform because that's what we had to do. We had to go virtual. We didn't want to lose the connection with our members and with our families. Those were still vitally important programs that needed to be available. So we are learning and growing with virtual programming. So we have a couple of different options, and we'll just continue to improve and keep rolling with the punches just like everybody else.
The process of drawing the lines for Lowell's newly mandated election districts is beginning soon. The districts must contain approximately equal number of residents, but the boundaries are not yet set and community members are invited to weigh in. Oren Selstrom, one of the lawyers for the plaintiffs, explains.
So this process came out of a settlement that the city reached with plaintiffs who sued the city in 2017 for a Federal Voting Rights Act violation. The parties settled in 2019, and as part of that settlement, the city agreed to change its electoral system from the previous all-at-large system to a district-based system. So that is the process that the parties are now jointly embarking on, is to draw those districts that will now govern the city's local elections starting in 2021 going forward.
So there would be 8 districts in terms of city council. So there would be 8 districts that would be formed, and then there would be 3 at large. So that would mean is that a candidate that wished to run for a district would have to be in that district, and then 3 positions on the city council would be open to candidates from the entire city. So anyone could run those seats. And then those districts would be consolidated for the school committee seats. So again, there would be, I believe, 4 school committee members that would be voted from districts, and then there would be 2 that would be at large.
We really like about this process is that the Latinx community is finally looking a way that they can get some candidates to be able to represent the district, not only represent the whole community at large, but the district that they're gonna be representing. And now it's like you have the shot to really get it and represent the people that you're working with every day and with your neighbors that you just can be saying hi every single day. So it's a really exciting moment, and we can see the different changes that are happening in the city.
The city has retained the services of a redistricting expert, Dr. Priscilli. He's a professor at Stanford University, and he's one of the top people in the country on the subject of redistricting and has a depth of experience doing it. He has already started working for the city on this process, and we anticipate having sessions upcoming the end of the summer, and with Dr. Priscilli and members of the public, as well as obviously the city council and plaintiffs.
We're going to heavily rely on social media and small videos and the web, but we're also going to be doing some traditional outreach as well, as much as we can. Some door knocking, it's probably going to be limited, but we've also talked about making sure to bring in or on board organizations that actually see people regularly, say food pantries or the Lowell Community Health Center, churches. I think we have about 6 or 8 weeks to put the word out and then get feedback in. We're pretty confident we can do a fairly thorough job under current circumstances to get the word out.
I think what's really important is the idea of getting the community members engaged. As some of you here remember about the Lowell High School kind of conversation, right? There was a lot of, adversity amongst each other. But what was beautiful about that moment was that so many people came out and spoke about it. That's civic engagement at its best.
It's a process for input from the community, and then the expert will draw the line. So that's why it's so important for all folks who are interested in where the line should be drawn to give their input. We'll be providing a lot of different opportunities for people to do that, and people should give that input. They're the experts on this issue of where the lines most make sense for Lowell, and so we're eager to hear people's input, and we'll definitely be consolidating all that and getting that information to the expert as we can.
In this week's Sunspot, Lowell Sun Enterprise Editor Chris Scott sits down with the Lowell Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Joel Boyd.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to another virtual edition of Sunspot. We're honored to have Lowell Superintendent of Schools, Joel Boyd, with us today. You got to have three models. School is only a month away. You got to have in-school, virtual, and a hybrid. I mean, if you could talk just generally a little bit about how you're doing that, what you think really will be the case in September.
I'll tell you, whether we open schools and if we're able to open schools in the fall, really is not going to be a district decision. It's a decision of the virus data. If the transmission data is as it was last spring, then we're not going to be in a place where we can safely open schools. If the virus data is where it is right now, which for Massachusetts, you know, we started off as a hotspot, and now we're looking at like we're a model for the rest of the country to emulate because our data is trending in the right direction. And right now, as of right now, the information we have is that it will be possible to open schools in the fall. However, schools are going to look very, very different. And the requirements of having schools open in the fall is not going to allow us to have 100% of our students in the fall. Social distancing, air circulation, ventilation, all of those requirements that we have all become, I think at this point, expert in with the many news sources and scientists we've all been watching. We're going to follow the strictest guidelines from the most reputable sources. And I think the wavering guidelines from the state haven't really been helpful to anyone. It's confused families. You may have heard the state said first 6 feet, then 3 feet. And those changing guidelines certainly change the notion of capacity within our schools. But we're following the strictest guidelines, which are 6 feet of distancing among everybody at all times, which then changes significantly the capacity of our schools.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, how does that affect the layout?
Yeah, significantly, Chris. So we did a survey of families to see their desires for education in the fall. We also did a survey of all of our building capacities. And right now, our buildings range from being able to serve about 40% of capacity to others being able to serve even more than their student enrollment because they were under-enrolled buildings before. So we, on average, across the district, we can serve about 68 to 70% of our student population in buildings across, and that ranges from 40% to even, again, beyond their enrollment last year. And what we heard from families is that approximately at the point of when we provided out or gave out that survey towards the end of June through the beginning of July, about 70% of families were saying that they wanted to look toward in-campus learning. Another 70% said they wanted choices. So of the three models that you spoke of, on campus, at home, hybrid, we're looking to provide choices and options to families. Now that middle option, hybrid, a little bit of definition for families. So we all learned what at-home remote learning looked like. That was in the spring. I think we all have an idea of what in-person is. Hybrid would mean a student's participating in both of those, meaning they're going to school one day, not in school another day. You see a lot of districts going in that direction. It looks really good on paper. It works really well in theory, but as we start to talk with families, talking with teachers, it doesn't seem to work really well in practice. Teachers having to be expert in everything, families having to adjust routine every day or every other week. So the direction we're looking to go as a school district are maximizing options for families, following the safest protocols that we can, the strictest guidelines from the most reputable experts for anyone on campus, and then making sure that those options are full-time, 5 days a week, so that our teachers can become expert either remotely or in person. Our families can set and establish routines, and make sure that the options we provide to families are real options. Here's the balance that we're in as a school district. We know that these are some really critical decisions for families. We know we have to maximize options that could be available to families, and we have to give time. We know we can make, we know that could change day to day, but at the same time, we have to give teachers, we have to give parents, we have to give students time to prepare. So we said we're going to announce what we think are our reopening plans based on the data we have a month before the first day of school, so families have a chance to prepare. But
so
we know
that date would be when? So that date is
first week of August. Right now, our first day of school is September 2nd. You may have noticed the governor just gave an opportunity, and our school committee will take up a conversation tomorrow. I'll be recommending that we move the start date back to September 17th based on the allowance from the governor that allows for additional training for staff.
Lowell High School held a great graduation, 4 ceremonies actually, at LaLasher Park. I think it was either last week or the week before. How did those go? And are you pleased with, you know, the way people socially distance? And have you heard anything about some people who were at one or two of the ceremonies who might have been infected and might have spread the virus? I've heard that anecdotally. I don't have anything concrete on that, but I'm wondering if you've heard about that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, anecdotally, anytime anybody's in person, we should expect those anecdotes to find their way to the surface. We rely on the health department. Any positive test within our community goes to the health department. Contact tracing is in place. The reason that we practice all of these social distancing guidelines, in addition to masks, being outside, is to make sure that we know there's always a risk of somebody could be asymptomatic, could be tested positive, may not be positive. So much of our information is based on goodwill to one another, making sure that we're all honest with ourselves of what we're experiencing, which is the reason we put all these protocols in place. If we didn't put those protocols, we would have been in graduation in June. So first question first, you know, about spread. Not a concern about spread because we had such stringent guidelines in place. I'll tell you, Chris, it looked really good at the stadium in terms of how close we could get to a traditional ceremony, but it was nowhere near a traditional ceremony.
No,
if you look
not.
at the stands at LaLasher, we had so much space between people. There was nobody handing out diplomas. Students picked up diplomas off the stage. Everybody had face masks. We did the speeches by video so that nobody was sharing microphones. So we did everything possible, and then being outside itself, to make sure we could mitigate risk, because I think we all have to accept, and I share this with our families every single time, we cannot eliminate risk of the way this virus spreads. If we could eliminate risk, we would all be back to a sense of normalcy. We're just simply not. And the same is going to go when we come back to school. So I feel really good about the process we put in place. But if you ask me, can we be 100% certain at any time? I don't think any of us ever can be, which is why
you haven't heard any fallout from the high school graduation.
I hear of stuff all the time on any time that anybody's in person anywhere, as I think you do. I think there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of fear, but I have strong confidence in our health department. I have strong confidence in all of our health procedures, and I have the utmost confidence in all of the protocols that were put in place. It was a great graduation for everyone. Yep. And I think what you bring up is important when we talk about school opening. Inevitably, with the way this virus is moving, those anecdotes, those stories are going to surface. The full community should know that's why we have to do everything, not just masks, not just social distancing, not just ventilation. Important to do everything all at once to mitigate that risk.
Superintendent Boyd, just, you know, if you could say anything to the parents of how many little school kids are there now? About 14,500?
Yes. Yep.
Right.
That's a good number to go with. Yeah. Right around there.
What do you want to say to parents as they try to figure out what's going to happen in September?
Yeah, I think number one is that the safety of our students will be our top priority. Number two, we're going to work to maximize options for families, because we know the right choice for one family might not be the right choice for another. And number three, we're going to make sure that the timeline we're working with, while we know we have a lot of uncertainty in front of us, will allow us to give as much information to families as is responsible to share out. So next week, the first week of August, we'll be sharing our school start plan. Again, we're going to be looking at options for both virtual and in-person, but only if in-person is safe, and it won't be all students in person. So there will definitely be virtual options for families that are finding that works well for them. The virtual option will be improved from last spring. We've learned a lot. We're going to make sure that we can improve that. One way we've improved that is every student in Lowell Public Schools will be receiving their own Chromebook to start the year. So every student will have their own Chromebook. We'll make sure there's access to the resources that are needed for our students to succeed. There will be a virtual option. There also, right now, it's looking like there will also be an in-person option. But again, as Chris, as you said, it's all dependent on the virus data. And and we're going to follow that data. And families, please do as well. And I've tried to share, tune out the varying and wavering guidelines that you see. In Lowell Public Schools, we're going to follow the strictest guidelines. The state may say 3 feet of distancing, 6 feet of distancing is what we're following in Lowell Public Schools. You may see other guidelines waivers someplace else. Here in Lowell, we're going to do what's right by our families and our community, and safety is going to be our top priority.
Superintendent Boyd, it's always a pleasure to speak with you, and I appreciate you coming on. I know you're on a very tight schedule. I really wish you a lot of luck getting all this stuff. You certainly have a lot on your plate, and keeping all those kids safe and all the staff safe. So thank you again for coming on, and thank you, viewers, for tuning into the latest edition of Sunspot. In a couple of weeks, we'll have someone else on, and so have a good evening, everybody, and stay healthy.
And that does it for this edition of LTC News. You can find us on LTC channels 8, 95, and 99, online at ltc.org, on Roku in the LTC News playlist, on Facebook at LTC Lowell, or on our YouTube page. We leave you now with shots from Lowell's Columbian Day celebration on July 25th. I'm your host, Matt Nelson. Thanks for joining us.